Maybe it's because I'm 53 and becoming nostalgic about the past, but every now and then I see on Twitter, now called X, some footage from the United Kingdom in the 50s or 60s or 70s, and I'm overcome by the beauty and the peacefulness of it compared to the cacophony and violence I see when I visit that place today. Now, no, don't get me wrong. London is still a wonderful, riveting city, especially for tourists who don't have to live there. It is also quite a crime-filled city. And there's different parts of it. We saw in Tower Hamlets, which is sort of a village within Greater London, a massive display of Islamic supremacism the other day, where people were marching and saying, this is our territory, and the police yielded it to them. Here's a quick clip of that. So there's some no-go zones, definitely. And you may have heard, if you recall, I mentioned the other day, that the city of Birmingham, that's the second largest city in the UK, has told Jewish and Israeli fans of soccer not to attend the match between Aston Villa, the local team, and the Israeli team, Maccabi Tel Aviv, because according to the police, they cannot guarantee the safety of Jews or Israelis if they go to a Birmingham soccer game. Just absolutely incredible. But that's just how it is on the slow burn regular day. But every once in a while, those regular days of dystopia that make one long for the days when Britain was British, every now and then you get a shocking reminder of who has been invited into the United Kingdom, not by the people, but by the governments. And so it was in the last 36 hours when an Afghan migrant took a knife and stabbed to death a local British man in Axbridge who was simply walking his dog and went on a massacre. Joining us now to talk about this is our friend Jack Hadfield, one of the leading citizen journalists in the UK. Jack, what are the details? What are the facts about this Afghan migrant who went on a stabbing jihad in London?
Yes, so what we know for sure is that a 45-year-old man and a 14-year-old boy were first attacked by this Afghan national who was 22 years old. As far as we've been told, he came over to this country in a lorry in 2020. It was initially thought potentially he may have been part of the Afghan resettlement scheme, which the Conservative government put in to allow people who supposedly helped the British government during the Afghan war, interpreters and so on, but ended up expanding to include many, many people who had no connection to the British administration of Afghanistan there at the time. So there was a suspicion going around that this was the case. It turns out that this has been not the case. So what we know for sure is that, as I said, he stabbed the 45-year-old man and a 14-year-old boy, and then a 49-year-old man who's named as who was a local bin worker. He was walking his dog. He's a farmer, and he attempted to intervene in this situation, at which point the Afghan national stabbed him to death, and he sadly died of his injuries. As far as we know, the 45-year-old man and the 14-year-old boy are in hospital currently. Neither of those two have yet passed away. I don't know if I know much more about their conditions right now, but certainly what we know now is that one has died. What additional information that I've been hearing going around, I've not seen 100% confirmed, is that the 45-year-old man and 14-year-old boy were father and son, and it may have been the case that the Afghan national was living with them, lodging with them, as an asylum seeker, and an argument broke out between them in the house where this Afghan man was lodging, which then spilled out onto the street. So I've not seen full total confirmation of that. I'm sure we'll get more information from this in the coming days, though.
Every single aspect of this story is shocking and horrifying. And the possibility you just described that these were actually people literally providing their own home to him is perhaps the most shocking but least surprising part of it all. It's like that old parable of, the frog crossing the river with the scorpion on its back. And the scorpion stabs the frog, and they're both drowning. I think it's an Aesop's fable, in fact. And the frog said, "Why did you do this to me?" And the scorpion said, "It's in my nature." That's the Aesop's fable version of that parable. Donald Trump tells a different version of it. People from Afghanistan have a different culture. It's not a race. It's not a language. It's not a religion. It is their culture. It is a more barbaric place. And we would never send our friends and family on vacation to Afghanistan. But what we've done instead is we brought Afghanistan to us, to Canada, but to a much larger effect, to the United Kingdom. You say that this accused murderer, by the way, what's happened to him? He's been tasered. Is that right? He's been taken into custody? So he's not been shot dead or anything. He's just been tasered and then arrested. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. He's been tasered and he's been taken into custody. His name has not yet been released, although the Home Office very quickly to clarify that he was not, the Metropolitan Police were very quickly to clarify that he was not in Home Office accommodation, in that they immediately tried to get out before more riots, before more protests started, to confirm, no, he wasn't living in an asylum hotel. It's fine. Don't protest about this. So you can see where their priorities lie, where that's almost becomes, statement number one to clean up immediately before we actually know who he is or why he was here. I don't think it matters if he was in a hotel, if he came here illegally, if he's an asylum seeker. And frankly, even if he was brought here legally under the Afghan resettlement scheme, he was part of the wider system of mass migration that's been facilitated both legally and illegally by the British government and by governments across the West, for the past however many decades. However he got here, he shouldn't have been here. If the state that I live in, had any balls at all, this man would never have set foot on British soil.
Now you said lorry, which of course is the British way of saying a truck. So you're saying he sort of stowed away in a long haul, like a truck, a cargo truck that was crossing from France into the UK. Is that what you mean when he came in a lorry, that he sort of sneaked in a truck, in the back of a truck, underneath a truck, something like that?
Yes, that is probably what happened from what we can hear from current news reports. Until 2020 or so, which is when he came in, this was the preferred method for illegal migrants getting across the channels. This was before the small boats crossings really became as prominent and the most facilitated way for illegal migrants to make their way across. So I'm sure he would have been a small boat migrant if he came over just a few years later.
Right. These stabbing sprees, it brings back memories of the horrific stabbing at a Taylor Swift girls' party in July of last year, when 3 young girls were murdered and others were injured by the child of migrants. Absolutely horrific. What has been the public reaction? Because I know that something snapped in the UK. I'd say about 6 months ago, things changed. And the protest became more organic, more widespread. More mothers and daughters were going out, and grandmas were going out. It was not just professional activists who were it wasn't just political party leaders or our friend Tommy Robinson. It was heretofore apolitical people who basically said enough. And I saw that when we were in Epping, where a rape happened, where someone in a migrant hotel raped a young girl, I think of age 14, and that was just the final straw. I feel like ordinary Brits are becoming radicalized by the fact that this just isn't stopping, and it's not going to stop, by the way. You cannot rewire people from some of these places. I'm not saying every Afghan, but I know the rate that Afghans commit crimes is 30 times higher than local Brits. Not every Afghan is a rapist, of course not. But these migrants, I was just in Ireland the other day, that large migrant hotel, and of course Ireland's different from the UK, but 1,000 crimes have been reported. 1,000 crimes from a migrant hotel of just 2,000 people. You're bringing people over who have a different view of the world. They're from a low trust society, a violent society, a different place. What is the mindset of Indigenous Brits right now? I mean, how can you bear any more of this?
Yeah, I do think people are really waking up now and have done since Southport, I would say, was really the tipping point. And then what happened in Southport, the riots that then took place over a week there, simmered down, but then came back into public consciousness, as we mentioned, over the last 6 months or so. So I do think that people who were non-political or even on the left have now sort of woken up to the problem of mass migration, demographic change, all of these issues that were even, taboo to talk about, before Nigel Farage really took on the scene, with UKIP and then Brexit. And then it really has just been building and building and building over the last 20 years. And I think we still have more to go, quite frankly. But some of those stories, as you mentioned, just to pick up on two things, the statistics you mentioned regarding Afghans, the specifics on that is that Afghan nationals are 22 times more likely to be convicted for sexual assault than British nationals at a rate of around 55 out of 1,000 compared to 6 out of 1,000. And of course, those British national statistics will include second and third generation immigrants. So they don't even mean white Brits by this. They mean people who are British nationals. So for example, the Southport killer would not have been included in a Rwandan national list of crimes who would be under the British national list. Right. So the statistic will probably be, as I said, even more remarkably higher than that if you want to look at where people are from, historically. And then second, on the Epping thing, if you've been, for those of you who haven't been following more of the news on this, they accidentally released the man who sexually assaulted the 14-year-old schoolgirl, Hadesh Kabatu, wandered around the streets of London for 2 days. And we've just heard right now that he has been deported, but he was paid £500 to do so, which in Ethiopian average salary is about 6 months' wages. So this guy came over here. He sexually assaulted a schoolgirl, and then he got to go home and take 6 months' wages with him. And of course, he was happy to be deported for £500. So clearly, the clear and present danger that existed in Ethiopia, which he obviously had to claim asylum in this country for, just randomly vanished as soon as he asked to be sent back there with £500 in his pocket.
Yeah, that's incredible. Just a crazy story. And the fact that he was released accidentally from prison, he actually tried to get back in the prison. They sent him away. And for 2 days, he just wandered around casually, not trying to hide, not going full, Jason Bourne or anything. He's just this rapist just wandering around while there's some police shows in the UK that sort of make fun of goofy police. I think Hot Fuzz might be the name of one of them. Like that's the kind of, it took 2 days to find this rapist who was just wandering around in the United Kingdom. It's just absolutely crazy. Let me refer to a couple of things on social media. The first is the police force, which put out this tweet. We'll just put it on the screen here. That basically said, hey, everybody, and I'm talking now about the Afghan attack. The Metropolitan Police, that's a large police force in London, said, read our statement following the incident in Uxbridge. And they basically say, I would urge people to stop circulating this on social media. The police basically said, hey, everybody, stop talking about this, stop sharing facts, stop talking about crime, and they turn off replies. You can see there that no one is allowed to reply to the police. They've shut off that function. 1.9 million people saw this police tweet. So people are riveted, shocked, appalled, horrified by this story. And the net meaning of the police is, hey, guys, stop talking about this crime. What are you, racist or something? It's just weird, isn't it? Or that's normal now. No, it's not weird. It's normal in the UK now.
Well, yeah, it is the normal. It is the new normal that has been foisted upon us. And of course, I challenged the Metropolitan Police on this. I said, pull up the case law or the precedent, which proves that you can't share footage of any crime like this, because if they were correct, then the mainstream media couldn't show any footage, anything ever of any terrorist attacks, spree killing, which of course is utterly nonsensical. The Contempt of Court Act 1981 only applies to trials that are like booked in for a date, to be held at this time, that the trial is booked in, or a trial that is actually ongoing at the time. Yeah. There is no trial right now. We haven't even been identified. This person has not even yet to be identified to the public. So this is complete and utter nonsense. The police are lying to you. They are lying to you on social media deliberately. And what I would like to see, I don't know if you can clip this and get this to Elon, but I would urge Elon Musk, for those accounts on X that have the gray tick, the silver tick, the official government account tick, which the Metropolitan Police has, MPs will have, legislators will have, governments will have, I don't think these accounts should be allowed to turn off their replies. Don't you?
I think that's a very good point. They're government accounts. They're in Canada, we actually sued, here at Rebel News, we sued, I think, 5 different cabinet ministers for blocking us on Twitter because the courts agreed, and eventually we got consent orders against the cabinet ministers, so they agreed that if it's a government-run, public service-run Twitter account, it's not the private account or personal account of the politician where they share family photos or whatever. If it is a government account run by civil servants, it is just as much a service as being able to go to an MP's office or phone a government phone number. Mm-hmm. So in Canada, at least, it is now precedential law that you cannot block people on government Twitter accounts. I like your point. They shouldn't be able to stop replies either, or, do it from your own personal account. But I think you're so right. Speaking of Elon Musk, let me show his comments after reading this shocking news. In fact, it's his pinned tweet, which, for those who don't know, it's the one he highlights and has at the top of his file. Let me read it for you. He makes a reference to the great British novelist and thinker J.R.R. Tolkien, who wrote The Lord of the Rings, and he said this. So it's sort of funny that he refers to that, because but that is a source of wisdom, I think, and it does capture a British tradition. Let me read it. When Tolkien wrote about the hobbits, he was referring to the gentlefolk of the English shires who don't realize the horrors that take place far away. They were able to live their lives in peace and tranquility, but only because they were protected by the hard men of Gondor. Again, he's making reference to the novel. What happened to the nice man who was brutally murdered while walking his dog will happen to all of England if this tide of illegal immigration is not turned. It is time for the English to ally with the hard men, like Tommy Robinson, and fight for their survival, or they shall surely all die. I mean, no one has ever accused Elon Musk of, sugarcoating it, and he doesn't hold back there. He's quite dramatic. He sees, sees things you and I might not see. He thinks in grander sweeps than perhaps you and I think. I mean, I like to think that, Jack, you and I are alert and alive to the world, and we notice things, and we're, but I think that Elon Musk has a certain kind of vision too. What do you think of his pinned tweet?
Yeah, I think he's right in that people really have to wake up and see what is in front of them. That's one reason why I personally shared the footage of what happened, because, if people don't see the violence that happens when you allow mass migration, be it legal or illegal, into your country, it will never get into your head why the consequences of this, which is why the police are trying to stop people sharing it. If I was killed by a migrant on the streets of this country, I'd want that footage shared and blasted into every home and every TV screen. I'd want people to know what had happened to me. and I'd want people to know why it had happened to me and who was responsible for it. Just on Elon's post, you'll have seen a number of people, especially on Blue Sky, but also on Twitter. I can name one off the top of my head, Sundar Katwala, who's the director of British Future, who is basically pretends to be a moderate, sensible centrist, but is really is an immigration maximalist, like many other people on the left. And he and others of his ilk on the liberal left of Britain have been condemning Elon for calling for violence, supposedly like he did there in that tweet, or like the remarks he said at the United Kingdom rally. They've all been going at him for saying this thing on X just yesterday, but none of them in their posts have said why he said it. Isn't that remarkable? They don't want to mention the fact that he's only saying these things right now because a 22-year-old Afghan national who should never have been here killed a 49-year-old father on the streets of this country brutally. They want to hide the truth from you. Right. And that's why these people can never even portray themselves as seekers of truth and be what is right, what is objectively correct, because they masquerade, they hide, they obscure facts from you that you don't want to see to continue their own political agenda.
It reminds me of what I saw last week in Ireland. A 10-year-old girl there was raped by an illegal migrant who was ordered deported, and the regime media were more obsessed with the protest against the migrant hotel than they were with the cause of the protest, the rape. Jack, you've convinced me that we ought to show the video, so I'm going to give a little viewer discretion warning. We're now going to show the video of the murder, so click away if you don't want to see it. And I think you're right. I think we have to see the reality of it. I remember the Islamic attack in Paris 10 years ago at the Bataclan nightclub. Perhaps the most horrific thing that had ever happened in France, ever. Yeah. The crimes were, and the cruelty and the torture of the men and women inside that nightclub were shocking. And I'm not going to describe what was done here, but it was so appalling, and yet it was covered up so vigorously because I think the country would have broken if they would have known what had been done by those Islamic terrorists. And you're right, we should absolutely show it. That is the United Kingdom in 2025, and they are not stopping. The boats are not stopping. It's just not stop. It's not, and we haven't yet had that kind of violence in Canada. But I think it's only a matter of time if we continue down this path. Jack, great to see you again. Thanks for joining us. And keep up the journalism. For folks who want to follow you, they can go to Jack Hatters on X. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, there he is, Jack Hadfield. Stay with us. Your letters to me next.